Hey guys and gals, Never here from Cedric Gaming, and 70 miles word of the gaming dragon. Today I'm coming back at you with a Let's Play episode of A Fall from Grace. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back in, shall we? Alarm chain, you were up, and let's go. I'm gonna go ahead and, alright, let's do it. Alright. Cedric must have been a lot more patient than he gave himself credit for, judging by how long he put up with it. Worst of all, they seemed to enjoy encouraging Lysander's nastiest traits. No, focusing on Jack and Bill wouldn't do his mood any good. He tried to dwell on happier memories as he picked up his pace, reaching the camp in a matter of seconds, dead set on chatting to a couple of the bandits. Now, who should I talk to first? I want to talk to Dion first. Gazing around the camp, Cedric was having trouble spotting their eccentric leader amongst them, which should have been an easy feat. A man of that size and stature in such flashy clothing was clearly not trying to hide. As Cedric walked the perimeter, a familiar voice resounded from somewhere in the trees nearby. Following it, it did not take him long to spot the hyena standing in a small clearing with something clutched in his hand. Rather than approaching and interrupting the imposing figure, the coyote stopped nearby to listen to the actor. "Hark, young chosen! Turn thine eyes and ears to mine, and seek the answers thou hast sought throughout the Sisyphean quest. Thou shouldst have fallen long ago with thine companions, but thou hast proven trickier and more cunning than the average hero. And now everything thou hast set thy gazes on has led thee to me. Know thy place and kneel before the god who will end thee." Dion paused in his monologue as though he were waiting for a response from a non-existent figure. "For whether or not thou shalt bow to me, the gods have already determined thy fate. Long ago was it intertwined with mine, but no longer. Thy thread is already pulled taut. It only waits to be severed by my blade. On guard, for the mercy thou seeks hath run dry like the Styx." Cedric waited a moment, intently listening to the rehearsed speech, when Dion lowered his arm and bowed. "And scene. You may come out now, lad." The coyote startled for a moment at realizing his presence was known, before applauding and entering the clearing where the leader waited. "That was quite the show, Dion, but how'd you know I was there? I was sure I'd been silent." "If an actor doesn't know his stage, if he is not aware of his surroundings, then he is nothing more than a clumsy fool." He paused, reveling in his dramatics. "You also stepped on a twig." Well, maybe I'm not as sneaky as I thought." "It's all right, lad. You'll improve the longer you're with us. The life of a bandit is not an easy one, after all. Besides that fact, what brings you my way? Is there anything I can help with?" Only that I'd like to get to know you better. If I'll be here a while, I should make myself more comfortable in all senses." Dion wore a huge smile on his face when hearing the words. "Why, of course! What do you want to know? I have plenty of stories to tell and various ways to tell them." "Like that one from earlier?" "Indeed." "Who authored that, by the way? I don't recognize it." That is a Dionysus original, my boy, penned finely by yours truly in an effort to live amongst the greats. How did you enjoy it?" "Well, it was quite dramatic and over the top. I'd expect nothing less from an actor like you." "Excellent! Establishing a way to stand out amongst one's fellow artists is a hard but noble feat. Hearing that I've begun to accomplish that brings joy to my heart." Cedric smiled, knowing they were getting off topic, but entertained by the hyena nevertheless. "How long have you been working on that one?" "It is amongst one of my more recent pieces. I call it Andrea's Shall Fall. It follows the story of a man hated by the gods and assigned various quests to accomplish, meant to kill him. Unfortunately for the gods, however, he surpasses each challenge no matter how impossible, seeking to mark his name amongst the greats. The god leading the charge in particular was prophesied to be killed by said hero, and by the end of the story the two engage in a final combat upon Olympus." Cedric couldn't help but find himself intrigued by the story. It sounded like any book he would have found amongst the shelves of his former home. "It sounds incredible. Will you ever perform it for us?" The hyena let out a loud, boisterous laugh before slapping a hand down on Cedric's shoulder. "Maybe one day, my boy. I still have yet to finish the tale, but I am oh so close." He paused, eyeing the coyote up and down. "Perhaps you could help me. You seem well versed in the ways of plays and literature such as this, and I am not ashamed to seek the assistance of an editor." Cedric smiled back. "I'd love to." "Excellent! You continue to impress me, my boy." A warm feeling filled Cedric's chest at that, enjoying the praise. "Have you always been interested in writing stories like this?" "Aye, though it did not garner the support of those close to me, unfortunately. Growing up, I lived in a less than financially stable family. Times were tough, and the day I saw a play made them only tougher. Laying my eyes on that stage felt like a call to my destiny that I could not refuse. I taught myself how to read and write, telling my parents it would help us in the long run. When they found out the little funds they spared me were being directed towards playwriting, however, they were disgusted. They called it the devil's work and told me I was disappointing them and God in my blasphemous ways. Throwing my writings into the fire, I fled the house that week. Oh, I'm sorry for asking, Dion. I didn't mean to bring up such a touchy subject. Worry not, my boy. Every good tale has its tragedies, that would make our life stories more interesting. Cedric felt like he might be pushing his luck, but Dion was truly a great storyteller. He wanted to know more. Then what happened next? Upon my flight, I managed to find a new home amongst a traveling theater company. It was as if the fates had heard my pleas. It was a small group, and they welcomed me with open arms. I spent quite a number of years with them, learning as much as I could. All of us had the dream of having our names amongst the greats, hoping our stories would be passed along for generations. As a result of the emotions from departing my family and the ones I kept bottled up from hiding my fascination for men, I poured a great deal of it into my writings. They were good pieces, I might add, surely ones that would have garnered our troops some attention. If only I wasn't too ashamed to show them, my plays could be out there. Dion was smiling at the fond memories as he recalled them. It sounds wonderful. You must have truly loved every moment. I did. His smile began to fade, but the gods had other plans for me in that regard. A traveling theater troupe can only do so well for so long before disaster strikes. Egos began to clash with each show, and the subsequent funds added to that negative passion. The group began to crack beneath the pressure. And one day it shattered. It was like the blink of an eye where we disbanded, where I once was penniless and without a home. Town to town I went in search of a job, turning up nary a shilling. There was no work for an actor with a minor reputation like mine to find. Thus we find ourselves at my current fate. I turned to banditry when it was clear there were no other options left to me. A few months after I met Hollis, and together we donned the name of my former troupe in search of forging a more sound family than either I had had before. Cedric was silent, the story playing in his head, another person who had turned to banditry out of desperation. And look at us now, together and reunited with Vic, happier than we have ever been. Cedric's guilt began to grow again, feeling as though he was out of place amongst these people. If he hadn't gotten himself together, he could have gone back to his family. None of these people were at fault for becoming bandits. Circumstances had pushed him to this point, yet he had chosen this life when he had an opportunity to live one they had likely dreamt about. His mind flashed to his mistakes earlier that day, reminded how he had messed up his first proper robbery. Did he really belong there? As Cedric began to shy, Dion watched his face fall and recognized the look he had seen on so many of his compatriots before. The hyena smiled, sitting on a nearby log and gesturing for the coyote to do the same. Something on your mind? Cedric hesitated, contemplating whether he should elaborate on his failure earlier to the man who was most likely the best bandit here. If he wanted to make a good impression, wasn't it better to make him think that Cedric was capable? Yet the coyote found himself sitting down all the same. Victor seemed to have a history with this man, and there was no sense in lying about it to someone who had been incredibly hospitable. V and I attempted a robbery before you found us, before guards showed up, as we relayed earlier. The detail V spared, however, was that I hesitated. I thought I had the courage to go through with it, the guts to commit. When I came face to face with the reality of it all, it was as though a wave crashed down on my willpower and I froze. Cedric looked down into his hands, not meeting Dion's eyes. What if I hesitate again? What if I get someone hurt or worse? I wouldn't be able to handle that. When it all comes down to it, I'm scared I don't have what it takes like the rest of you do. There were tears in Cedric's eyes as he let out a shaky breath, surprised how quickly it had all come spilling out of him. He needed this more than he realized. A large hand clapped down on his back, nearly sending the coyote sprawling to the ground. When he looked at Dion, he saw that he was wearing a smile. That, my boy, proves that you do. Seeing the confused look Cedric gave him, the hyena continued. Do you think any of us started out our lives thinking this is where fate would draw us? Living a life of crime and constantly on the run from the law? Life never has the plans we expect them to have for us, and that's what makes it all the more worth living. To answer your questions, no matter what we do, every job has its risks, and we all accept that fact every time we take one on. Even now, there's moments of hesitation and questioning amongst all of us. We've all given up our fair share of dreams and achievements to walk this path. But having the ability to question it all proves that you have a good head on your shoulders. Not only that, but a good heart as well. He placed a hand on Cedric's chest. And to follow your heart like you did takes the most courage of all. Cedric wiped the tears from his eyes and turned, enveloping the hyena in a big hug which he returned. After a few moments, the hyena stood up and offered Cedric a hand. Here, follow me. The two walked back toward the camp and stood on the edge, looking around at the various bandits strewn about. Laid out before you is a group that is perceived by the masses to be nothing but no good, dirty criminals. Many of the rich would love to mount our heads. But those that truly look at us can see that we're more than just those society despises. We're outsiders and outcasts, misfits and marauders, unique and unruly. Yet at our core, this group surpasses all of that. We're family, Cedric, and we're all more than happy to have you join us. Who I should talk to next? Talk to Hollis and Ridley. Cedric set his eyes on Hollis's old carriage, its warm red tone almost glowing in the flickering firelight. Where on earth could the tiger have found or brought such an item, he wondered. Hollis appeared almost on cue, heading for the wooden door on it, with a pile of plates the group had used during their meal in his arms. Cedric waved as he saw the tiger glance in his direction, the bandit smiling in return. Ahoy there, Cedric! Is there anything you need? No, don't worry. I was just wondering if you had a moment. I'm just done cleaning these air plates, so your timing couldn't be better, actually. That's great. Well, I was just wondering how you came to own this carriage. Cedric almost kicked himself as he realized how foolish he must have sounded. This was a bandit, for heaven's sake. That was the most likely way the tiger had gotten his hands on it. Did you, steal it? Hollis laughed as he walked up to the steps and entered the vehicle to rid himself of the clean dishes. Indeed I did, lad. Probably the classiest robbery of my life. This beauty had already been stolen by a couple of other rogues, but the moment I saw her, I knew she had to be mine. Funny enough, I'd never thought my old profession would come in handy as a bandit, yet that's exactly what happened. I mixed up an incredibly powerful drink that evening. It would have knocked the world's strongest bull over in a matter of seconds, I'm telling ye. And I snuck into their camp as they were dining and slipped a good amount of... actually, maybe I should give him like an Irish accent. That might be better for him. Okay. I mixed up an incredibly powerful drink that evening. It would have knocked the world's strongest bull over in a matter of seconds, I'm telling ye. I snuck into their camp as they were dining and slipped a good amount into each of their bottles and flasks. Barely an hour later, they were spread out on the ground, utterly unconscious. And so I tied a horse to my new carriage and rode away, victorious in the end. Hollis reached Cedric as he sat down on one of the logs with a loud groan. He grumbled as he stretched his legs. Honestly, at times, it feels like I do all the housework for these boys and get nothing in return. Cedric smiled. As for a larger share of the loot, perhaps? Aye, or just a favor or two. I'd do well to keep that in mind. But tell me something about yourself, Cedric. I'm very curious to get to know you. It's not often our lot crosses paths with a proper nobleman. The coyote let out an embarrassed snort, sitting himself close to the tiger. Alright, y'all, I gotta get ready for work. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it right there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I love you all, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye!